Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a TV review of the following episode 13, Whips and Regrets. So at the end of last episode we saw Claire drive off with Roderick and a couple of the followers. And this episode picks off where Kevin Bacon's character is basically depressed and kind of drinking himself to death basically. He gets a phone call early one morning from Joe Carroll, basically sort of gloating and taunting him essentially. But then you've got the female FBI sort of chief turn up at his apartment and kind of snap him out almost and kind of try and sort of get him back in the game. And their only real lead at this point is like a recruitment website that they kind of saw last episode, I think it was. And this is kind of this creepy website where you have to sort of figure out a password, and there's basically a test. But they basically managed to get the IP address of where the website is based, and it turns out that it's in this S&M club, and they sort of basically got they go in there sort of to try and find obviously a lead essentially. And there's kind of the female madam who's running it obviously recognises that they're sort of FBI or police or whatever and tries to sort of make a run for it. But it turns out that she's not actually directly responsible for to do anything to do with Joe Carroll, but she knows someone and kind of is seeing one of the two militia guys from the last episode. And who has been sort of there and is kind of uses this place as a sort of like almost like a secondary base of operations. So they basically she's done a variety of different felonies apparently, and they basically coerce her into sort of helping them to try and track this guy so they can try and follow him back to Joe Carroll's sort of hideout. But she agrees to, obviously, she'll be off the hook really. So the main plot of the episode is this, and they kind of this one of these guys, he's basically come to pick up these sort of grenade things, and the FBI have kind of swapped him out and made him like not usable. But the idea is that they'll follow him back to Joe Carroll's hideout. But on the way, he decides that he wants to take this what are Joe Carroll's, I forget the actual character's name, but this militia guy, we'll call him, ends up just taking the madam with her, and she's obviously got a wire and stuff, but that wasn't part of the plan, and she's sort of trying to sort of get them to try and help it by using a sort of like a code word, but they decide to just let it happen and kind of let her follow in hopes that he'll take her back to Joe Carroll's. Of course, he doesn't. He takes him to this like a sort of training camp basically, where they're taking these new recruits to try and get them into the sort of this serial killer cult, and there's all like ammunitions and various different bits and pieces there, and then basically we had some silly stuff happening. All the FBI are basically following them, so we get the impression there's going to be a lot of people following this car. Anyway, they take him to this place. They follow him to this hideout or whatever. And then they hear that basically he discovers the microphone on this woman, and they sort of they go into sort of basically storm the building, obviously, because they think that she's going to get harmed or whatever. And then it actually turned into a little bit of a horror. This episode, it kind of almost reminds me of more of like a horror film, which I quite liked that element of it, I have to say. They sort of discover this sort of cage full of like of people. And it turns out that they're not prisoners. These are people who are kind of being trained as in deprivation. Although if there's deprivation, I don't know whether there's three of them in there. But anyway, the stupid thing here is you've got one lone FBI agent on his own patrolling these sort of dark underground areas. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen. You're not going to have one lone FBI agent where there's a known serial killer walking around and they don't know what's down there. It's just not going to happen, and so that's just an excuse for these him to stupidly let these sort of people out the cage, thinking they're going to be victims, but of course they're actually cultists. They end up killing this bloke and sort of going on the rampage. So it's kind of almost turned into a bit of a survival horror type thing, where it's in the dark and there's sort of, you know, you've got these sort of manic cultists running around, and sort of luckily obviously Kevin Bacon of course saves the day and you know, kills them. Now they have found a lot of obviously info. They haven't got any live witnesses. The main guy sort of escapes, and but it looks like they have found a substantial amount of evidence. But that was really stupid. It's kind of you know, at some point this TV show when it started seemed fairly intelligent, but it's kind of just going into these stupid situations that are kind of unrealistic. I didn't think Claire realistically getting into the car, and I'll come back to Claire in just a second, getting into the car last episode was going to be a realistic decision. And this thing with this FBI agent, again, stupid. Now the sort of beeline plot really is obviously Claire's now arrived at you know, at the sort of like this big mansion where Joe Carroll is, and she wants to see her son. But you know, she acts surprised when she doesn't get her own way, and kind of you know, is demanding to see Joey and whatever, and it's almost sort of like, you know, looking like she's regretting going there when she's just locked in a room. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? This is what I mean. Again, it's just stupid decisions. Joe Carroll's seems to be almost trying to sort of brainwash her into kind of like getting back to get them back together again. The other interesting thing here, like I thought it would happen, is we're seeing a continuous rift between Joe Carroll and Roderick, his sort of second in command, and it really deepens this episode where they actually come to blows. So I do think that ultimately is going to be probably the undoing here, to be honest with you. You've also got some scenes with Emma and the sort of you know the other guy who she was involved with, but they don't really amount to a hell of a lot this episode. So that's really, I mean, it was kind of, you know, it was quite a tense episode in this sort of you know, in these kind of like almost catacomb type sort of situations. But again, these stupid decisions that people are making are just taking me out of the sort of like the intelligence of this show, when it kind of, it could be an intelligent show, but it's just people just don't react in a realistic way. They're just not acting like what I think actual real people would act. So it's starting to annoy me a little bit now, and hopefully I'm hoping it's gonna realise what it's doing, maybe pull itself out. But at the moment, it's just turning into a cliche fest. So I'm gonna give this episode a 6 out of 10. It had some good atmosphere, I would say, but you know, it's just becoming a bit of a cliche fest now. Did you see it? Let me know what you think.